believe this review of the Akva Azura should start with a few words about its creator, Henrik Scott. A man of many talents, the Danish artist has initially had his breakthrough in the music industry, where he enjoyed success for the 10 years he has spent creating down-tempo and progressive electronica. Far from being a diva, Henrik is said to be one of the nicest persons in the watch world, and my interaction with him went to prove just that. Not only was he extremely accommodating to my changing of the colorway I initially have chosen, he replied to an email I wrote about changing of the shipping date within 5 minutes. And he did it by calling me on the phone. I am yet to hear about such customer care from any brand in any field. Akva is Henry Archer's sixth model, and it's fascinating going on their website and seeing how the design evolved while still managing to keep a coherent identity. Even when recycling parts, Henrik goes the extra mile of improving them, and the addition of female end links and quick-release spring bars to the same beads of rice bracelet he has used before on their previous model is testament to this brand's efforts to improve their products. But more on the bracelet and these new features later. I am yet to see a 40mm watch that looks so small. I bet a huge part of this is down to the unbelievable thinness of the watch. 10.5mm is dress watch territory, but this lack of bulk does not come at the cost of water resistance. This is still a capable diver, a sapphire crystal sandwich that can hold its own at 200 meters underwater. The brushed finish of what I initially dismissed as a rather generic-looking case is tamed by perfectly polished chamfers, and the downturn of the lugs is practical enough to help smaller wrists accommodate the watch, yet discreet enough to avoid digging into larger forearms. Of course, in order to get a thin watch, you need a streamlined caliber, and as always, Miyota provides once again the champion of affordable automatic movements, the 9 series. Smooth sweep of the seconds hand, great reliability, more compact dimensions and better accuracy than the NH series should render the Seiko produced movement obsolete by now. The crown's size, finishing and placement are perfect, as it looks like it's intertwining with a bezel. Speaking of the bezel, its polished finish looks fantastic and feels great to the touch, but it comes at the cost of slippery action, especially as it's rather stiff. The clicks sound great though, and the minimal backplay doesn't interfere with the alignment of the markings. I believe the choice to go with a grey sapphire bezel is the right one because of both the multitude of colors available for the dial and the relative narrow surface that required a neutral color. Some might not like the markings they have decided to apply on the bezel, but to me they are part of a design that tries to give this diver more versatility and balance. Stepping down to the dial, Akva's coolest party trick is the mirror polished rehaut. When looking at the renders on the website or even at the photos Henrik has posted on social media, I didn't observe this feature, but in real life it literally jumps at you. The way markers, minute track and light are reflected in the mirror creates a very distinct spatiality I personally have experienced for the first time. Printing is a tale of two parts. The minute track and especially the minute markings with their two color accents are perfectly done, and I really appreciate the wavy shapes on the dial connecting the markers. Speaking of the wavy shapes, I had to get my big magnifier out to confirm they're not grooves but applied filaments. On the other hand, I'm somewhat disappointed the cool logo and the 2 lines of text under the pinion are not applied. Looking at the watch dead on, you can hardly notice them, and you would need a 45-degree angle to bring them to life. By tilting it further, Akva reveals its best kept secret as the waves become 3-dimensional, sinking the markers at 12 and 6 while elevating the others. You can get this with the naked eye, but looking through a loop you can almost hear the waves. As you will see later, the applied markers are filled to the brim with BGW9 lume, same as the segmented baton hands. I am pretty sure some would say the minute hand should be longer, but I feel this is an option congruent with the modern design of the watch. The Azura is the only variant sporting a yellow seconds hand, and having 2 lume zones on it is another original touch. I guess I have already teased the lume enough, so let's turn off the light. This is a watch that will help you save a lot of electricity. Just place the watch on the table and start reading that novel you keep by the bedside. Don't worry, the lume would last till morning, and it only needs a few rays of sunlight to charge back to ferocious levels of luminosity. As you will see, I tested the BGW9 application for 20 minutes and only the tip of the seconds hand disappeared in darkness. Very well done, Henrik. We've arrived at the point that will perhaps be the most divisive amongst potential buyers of the Akva. This might be a diver, but it doesn't feel like one. Instead of stubbornly pushing your sleeve up, this watch sits quietly under the cuff, waiting for its moment to shine. This is not a Submariner type of diver, but an Oyster Perpetual that happens to sport a turning bezel. And besides its compact dimensions, one key factor to this character is the bracelet. I have to admit that taking the watch out of the box, I was somewhat disappointed. The watch seemed small, the bracelet was jingly and was moving in all directions. The big taper seemed too much, and the watch as a whole felt light, too light. 5 minutes later, with 3 links removed for a perfect fit on my 19cm wrist, I started feeling the watch, and the feeling got better with each hour that passed. This bracelet is good, really good. It will keep the watch right where you left it and will do it by adjusting its grip without leaving chafed skin or indented flesh on its wake. I scoffed at seeing the small clasp with its 3 meager micro-adjust holes, and while I remain a fan of glide locks and 2cm of on-the-fly micro-adjustments, I have to admit this watch doesn't really need them. I might just be lucky, as I was with a Timex Waterbury Chrono before, but that doesn't stop my enjoying of how good this feels. Still, I kept having this nagging feeling this is 80% the watch it could have been. I thought perhaps a more adventurous case would have done a better job to complete its looks, so I started looking at the watches in my collection to see how others have done it, and bang! To me, this is the perfect companion for the Akva. Clean, understated, quietly doing its job while letting the dial do all the talking. Obviously, you might think I'm a fool and I should have all my watches confiscated, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I say, this is the way. And don't you worry about that great bracelet. You'll get to see it sooner than you might expect. So, what's my conclusion? Well, this watch reminded me that trying a piece for 2 minutes in a shop, while still light years better than buying online and not having a chance to try it at all, is still not enough to get to know a watch. 80% of this review is stuff I picked up in time, some of which I spent looking at the watch through the magnifying glass. I'm really glad I don't do unboxings, as my initial reaction would have been insulting to how great this watch really is. That's why I don't get the success of some YouTubers that present 5, 6, even a dozen watches at a time, or others that do so-called reviews just as they open up the parcels. And don't even get me started on those that require compensation for their objective reviews. It's your prerogative, obviously, to follow whoever you think might hold opinions that are valid for you. But please, don't buy stuff that you can't try on without getting as much unbiased and in-depth info as possible. Regardless of the success or lack thereof of my channel, this is the place where you'll always get honesty, because I'm here to help you get the watch you want.